It's time for Let's Talk Money.
Good afternoon, Chattanooga. You're listening to Let's Talk Money with Jim Place and Jamie O'Donnell. 267-1023 is our number. We start our market day. Dow Jones average sits at 30,786 points, down 233. S&P at 3,872, down 27. James, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fine, as a matter of fact. Beautiful Tuesday out there. Max, what's going on?
Well, the heat's back, but other than that, everything's good.
That's not bad.
No.
You're on top of this. You're only responsible for one 94-degree day, and then it'll go the other way again.
Yeah, there we go.
Appreciate it. All right, with us this afternoon, Todd Henon. Todd, how are you doing?
I'm well, sir. Thank you very much.
And Brittany Ennen. Now, Brittany Ennen, all right, I got to say this first. Brittany Ennen is Brittany Fulmer Ennen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Philip Fulmer's middle daughter. You used to see those three girls at the football games all the time out there.
Yes.
Also a good personal friend, so there is a level of bias here that I will admit on the front end.
Yes.
Todd, talk to us about the business.
Oh, the business.
What do you do?
Sell real estate. We hustle real estate, have now for a little over 20 years here in Chattanooga and North Georgia, Alabama. Brittany joined us nearly 2 years ago, headed towards 2 years ago, and we lead a team of 10 out of Keller Williams downtown.
All right, very successful business, one of the top real estate entities in the Chattanooga area. Let's start, Todd, by describing the market as it is right now. Not what it was 6 months, 12 months, or 3 years ago, but right now.
Sure.
What's our real estate market look like?
Our real estate market right now looks like a seller's market. There's no question we do not have enough inventory to go around. That has not changed, regardless of the noise and the racket inside of the industry.
Now, they may tell you in other parts of the country that it's begun to change.
Sure.
It's less of a seller's market.
Sure.
That's not the Chattanooga market right now.
We are changing. We are changing. It's a dynamic industry. It has been for the 20 years that I've been in it. It's changing. It changes quarterly. It changes annually. But that said, when we have these conversations, I spend a lot of time reminding people we can talk about interest rates, we can talk about inflation, but every time we do that, I'm going to pull you back to the numbers. Let's talk about the numbers. I want to talk about the data. Because all of those other satellite issues don't change the numbers. The numbers will affect those other talking points. So we pull that conversation back to the numbers. There's not enough housing to go around.
And that's an interesting point because it's the same kind of dilemma that the Federal Reserve faces right now. You can take an interest rate from 2.75 and take it to 6 3/4.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had a market that used to have 5,000 homes for sale and has 800 homes for sale,
right? We don't have enough houses.
You don't have enough houses.
Correct.
And therefore, the Federal Reserve can kind of do whatever they want to do with the interest rate environment, but it doesn't have the level of impact that it might have had 10 or 15 years ago.
Absolutely. That's a true statement.
Is there a point where it does have an impact? Can that rate get so high that it does force the market, even though maybe there aren't enough houses out there?
And I think Todd and I have had conversations about this and maybe a difference of opinion because of the generational gap, right? So my generation has never seen anything above 4%, right? And so it's a huge shock to see. But if you look back at the data, and he gives us perspective of 20 years in the business, we're okay. You're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay, right?
Yeah. So first, let me say I don't know what she's talking about when she says generation gap. I can't figure that. I'm like, what? What do you?
Experience. The men in the room might be older than the women in the room. That's all I'm saying.
I get that same crap from her, Todd, so we don't have to worry about that.
Dad says you've got experience.
Yeah. So there's my first mortgage was 13 and some odd percent. So rewind this clock or calendar, whether it's 12 months, 24 months, 5 years, 8 years. These interest rates have done nothing but fall. So the
pretty well from 1981 to 2020.
Correct. Yes. Right. So the awareness, the public's awareness of interest rates, driven by over a decade of falling inventories, it's created housing inventory. It's created this seller's market, and I think most folks would certainly assume that you can put your house on the market and sell it for more than what you paid for it. That's not always the case. That's just not a law or a rule in real estate. It's a dynamic situation, and we have to take and break each one of those situations into an isolated event. Let's talk about it. Each house is different. Each family's needs are different. Each piece of real estate is different.
Now, Jamie, to your point, where you said, can you take rates to the point where you price people out of the market? You could.
You could.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it'd have to be a much higher number than 6 or 6.5%.
Correct.
Oh, I think so.
In this, with this level of inventory.
I mean, I remember our first interest rate on our first home was 6 3/4. It was higher. I'm
Right.
old enough to remember higher rates, and I think part of the issue is if Americans have very short memories. They remember what's been here recently, but the good news is they also adjust quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, agreed.
Now, it's got to be harmful for first-time buyers. That's got to be a market that's really struggle or will definitely struggle if rates keep creeping up.
Here's why I think it's challenging for the first-time home buyers is you couple it with with the low inventory. When I was a first-time buyer, and even when y'all were, Britt, you and Josh, the inventory levels weren't where they are today. So you couple an escalating interest rate environment with a low housing inventory environment. That's toxic for a first-time buyer.
You got one other added element right there too. You have a house that 5 years ago was $200,000 and an interest rate that was 3%.
Yeah.
Now the identical home is $300,000 and the rate is 6.7.
Right. That's right.
I mean, you got a combination there. I mean, because if I look at all those factors together, now I'm looking at a mortgage payment on a 30-year payment, maybe for a home that would have been $1,600.
Yeah.
That's now $2,900 or $3,000 a month.
Right.
For the same piece of property.
Correct.
Well,
Yep.
and a hard pill to swallow for some first-time home buyers is, if you have guidance from behind you from parents or, anything like that, and you're looking at this person purchased a home 3 years ago for X amount, and now today it's worth a much different amount, right? And having that conversation. To me, first-time home buyers may not have the bias that somebody that with a lot of experience has, right? And so guiding them, giving them the data, helping them understand what they need to be doing. You have to have a pre-approval or you have to have cash, right? That's the first step. You've got to call your lender, right? So having all of those conversations in the very beginning of the process, and like Todd said, really providing as much information and data as we possibly can helps them through the process. Todd says this is a discouraging process. Don't get discouraged, right?
That makes it. They need more education
They
than
need
ever.
a little bit more education.
Right.
Yep.
And the burn time is much longer than it used to be. I mean,
What do you mean by burn time?
Good question. So from the start of the process, which usually doesn't even include us, I mean, a couple or a buyer is talking about buying a home long before they engage an agent, or a family's talking about selling long before they engage an agent. Once they engage us, then on the buy side, that could be a 6-month, 8-month, 12-month process. And we may write, Brittany, she had a client recently, 10 or 12 different offers before they went under contract. That's how competitive that environment has been.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say burn time, it takes a minute to get somebody under contract now.
You're going to need to go in with patience.
You have to be patient.
Correct.
And you have to be prepared to move. When you find something that you love, you have to move quickly. I think the most success we've had is because we're efficient enough in an office capacity where we have a team that can do a lot of different things at one time, that we can be. I can go out and a good example. I can go out and show a property, call Todd and say, I'm showing another property in 20 minutes. Can you help me write this off? We all work together as this team, and we're fluid, and we can get something under contract more quickly. That's been probably the most success I've had with some buyers, is just using the team effort.
Todd, when you start talking about expectations for people, particularly people that are going to list a home for sale, you gave me this data. We go back to hit 2012. I won't run through all the numbers.
Right.
2012, Homes sold that year in this area, 7,038. I'm assuming that's a greater Chattanooga area.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Not
Right.
just Hamilton
Yes,
County.
sir. Correct.
Days on the market, 129 days.
Right.
Now, I'm just going to list from 2012 to 22, and I won't go what it changed each year. Days in the market, 129. Days in the market, 124. 129. Days in the market, 80. Days in the market, 65. Days in the market, 59, 50, 48, and 43. 43 took you through 2023. So it's fair to say the pandemic didn't necessarily in and to itself create this shrinking time for how long you're on the market. This inventory situation has been brewing for a much longer period of time, all the way post 2008.
In my opinion, this inventory crisis, if you will, that we're experiencing today, started when the great financial reset or recession ended, because we took, for all intents and purposes, we took 5 years of new construction production out of the market. We quit putting those on the market.
And it's never really recovered.
It has not recovered.
We're going to take a break. 267-1023. Let's talk money. We'll be right back.
Let's talk money. Talk Radio 102.3.
Yeah, back with Let's Talk Money, 267-1023. The number with me this afternoon, Todd Henon and Brittany Ennen. Henon and Ennen.
Yeah, those are kind of hard. I was glad I didn't
We
have
just
to
use
do
Fulmer
it.
on the phone because it's so confused. Are you his daughter? No.
All right, Todd, we're talking about this. We go 2012, 129 days on the market. 2022, I didn't hit this number.
Yeah.
2022, 14.
14.
14 days on the market. There were there have been this year 8,460 homes sold.
Is the 14 days still true where we are right now? Is it remained, or at least close to true?
Yeah, you're really close to true.
Okay.
With all of those, I think we pulled them last week. So it's setting the expectations specifically for sellers that it's okay if your house doesn't go in 24 hours. It's also okay if it doesn't go in 30 days.
But that's the narrative that was created during COVID and the lockdown.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a false expectation.
Now, that norm is that is one of the things, even with less inventory, that's probably going to move back to something higher.
Yes.
Maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks, whatever it would be, probably not going to stay at that level. So now we're trying to set expectations for somebody that's putting it on the market.
That's exactly where I was going to
Yes.
go. What are you telling people to, it may sell in 14 days, but how do you manage those expectations?
So I think, inside of, and again, let's take the number back, or take the conversation back to the numbers. So if Brittany and I are sitting down with a seller, we're going to always go back to the numbers. And there's great value in finding a trustworthy advocate, agent to walk you through this and not have a bias. It's all about the numbers. It's not about getting a listing. It's just the pure transfer of information so that a seller can make great information. So what we're going to do, based on the price point, because I assure you the days on the market for a $299,000 home, that's different than an $825,000 home in Council Fire or $1,050,000 in Council. That's a different animal. Mm-hmm. It's going to be different in Bradley County as opposed to in Highland Park or in Red Bank. So it's a highly geographical conversation. It's also a conversation driven around price point.
And I would add, if you're a buyer and something's been on the market 14 days or 21 days, there's some bias around there must be something wrong, right? And so I'm always of let's go see. Let's go look. Let's go see.
Sure.
Let's go make sure, right? And if there is something wrong, you'll probably see it, right? But there's always go.
Because maybe they overpriced it on the front end or whatever. There could be a reason
and
that
we
doesn't
will
line
have
up
that
with anything that can't be corrected,
Correct.
I guess.
Now, historically, I would say, and you tell me whether this is right or wrong, you want to correct that what was wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, assuming you're the listing agent, you want that corrected before we go on the market. I mean, you want to visual. The difference would be is if you're taking a couple out and you're showing them homes that you didn't list, you can run into that problem. If you're a real good realtor on the front end, I shouldn't run into that problem if you're my listing agent, because you should be able to tell me at some point you need to fix this or you need to do this before we go. Is that fair? Is that a level of assumption that I should have from you all?
You're having that conversation.
Yeah.
And you have to fill out, as a seller, you have to fill out a disclosure, right? And you shouldn't keep things.
The disclosure would earmark anything that's wrong with the property. And certainly if we're dealing with sellers that they want maximum return on their investment, and we want those issues put to rest. We want them put to bed so that it's a more marketable product. The buyer's objections are minimized.
Would you ever buy a piece of property and waive any level of inspection personally, Todd?
No.
I can't imagine you as a purchaser of real estate. I mean, I don't care what kind of bidding war we get in. If I can't property, or I can't look under that property to see whether there's any damn water there, or there's some that maybe the seller either didn't know or didn't disclose, that's a dangerous world.
It's a very dangerous world, and it's a huge investment. And if it was $10, it'd be one thing, but when we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, on a personal level, I want the ability to go through some due diligence, and we will absolutely encourage every single buyer that we work with, and that's just business in our industry. Inspect it, do your due diligence. We don't want anybody in a home or owning a piece of property that regrets what they've done. That's not a win for anyone.
How do you have that conversation if you're the listing agent and you're dealing with the seller? I mean, because the seller needs to be guided in some way, shape, or form, or two. I mean, you get into, quote, a seller's market. It's kind of like in the employer-employee world right now. The employee has some advantages over the employer. Right. It's not always that way. We've seen sellers' markets, we've seen buyers' markets out there. I don't have a tendency to want to take advantage of people. Yes, I want to get the highest price, but I don't know that I want to set a standard that we're only going to sell a person that doesn't require an inspection.
Right.
I'm going to discourage that.
Right. It's interesting. I think we have examples of all of those scenarios over the last 2 years. But I think this is what Brittany and I will frequently tell folks. If you're selling your used car, what's the first thing you do? You go wash it. What's the second thing you do? You vacuum the carpets, right? I mean, so you want to put it in its most presentable light. Same thing's true with real estate. It's just It's a little bit more expensive endeavor, but we do want to fix the dishwasher. If the front door's half off its hinges, it's like, all right, let's get somebody out here. And yes, it's going to cost you. It's a pain in the neck to do, but there's a return on that investment.
Oh, that does bring a secondary question to me. The individual that says, well, I've been in this house for 25 years. I want to sell it. I need to do some work. I need to do some work on it. I've never understood the person that redid the kitchen before they sold the house when they didn't redo the kitchen so they could live in the damn new kitchen.
So in this market that we've just experienced, for 2 years, if someone chose to remodel a kitchen, and that kitchen remodel was $50,000, they will put more than $50,000 in their pocket on the backside. There was a positive in the black ROI on that kitchen investment.
Now that hadn't been historically the case.
Exactly right. Used to, it was this weird thing where if you put a deck on, you only got 75%, and National Association of Realtors would produce this algorithm that showed the return. Again, for the last 2 years, whatever a owner chose to do, somebody was willing to pay them handsomely.
Well, and I think that comes from, you've got 100 people moving out of Chattanooga, 306 are moving in. So out of 100 people moving out of Chattanooga, 306 are moving in.
And 20% of the 306 come from one state.
Yeah.
So you've got, it's again, the supply and demand. That's another part of the conversation you were having before the break. How do we get there? The question was, how do we get to where the inventory is? And so we took a 5-year block out of construction.
Now we're talking about post 2008.
Yes, that is correct. Yep. So, from 2008 to 2012. 13, we shut down development and new construction. Developers and builders, for all intents and purposes, were extinct.
Because they couldn't get one, nobody loaned them the money.
Correct.
The banking industry wanted real estate off the books.
Correct.
Rather than on.
Correct. And so we took that production, out of the equation. Then interest rates are falling, so people are refinancing. And I mean, we deal with folks every day. Brittany would say, they have a 2.5 or a 3.25 interest rate on an existing mortgage. They're not going to get into this nutty real estate environment because
why
their mortgage.
Would you?
That's right. That's right. So why are you going to do that? So those homes have not come onto the market, which further reduces inventory. So Jamie, back to what we were talking about just a second ago, with interest rates rising, it now affects these builders and developers again. Their margins begin to fall, so they're pulling back. What does that do to our inventory? Mm-hmm. It puts the screws to the inventory again. So we're not putting as many homes on the market because the cost to borrow money is higher. So it further tamps down an already injured supply of housing,
which offsets the Fed's capacity to raise these interest rates and impact the market and keeping prices stable.
Correct.
I mean, that's why I always go. We have talked for months now about the job that the Federal Reserve has is to curtail this inflation is fraught with all types of issues, and the real estate industry is just one of them right now. We could see an increase, I guess, in the length of time it takes to sell a little bit. Mm-hmm. We probably could see a leveling of price increases, but not a decrease. I find it difficult to see. But I just the data. Forget the economists for a second and just look at the numbers and don't see how the prices come way down.
Right.
Well, and if you look at the market, the data says a healthy market is 6 months worth of inventory. Chattanooga, if you look at it, we're less than 2 months worth of inventory right now. So
that's why
until that changes.
Somebody called me a few weeks ago and he said, "I want you to talk to my son." The son was 37 years of age, and we were having a conversation about, is this a reasonable time to buy? And I said, yes. Now, is it an easy time to buy? No, because of the inventory situation. Could you be disappointed? Could you be outbid? Yes. But from the standpoint of what I think real estate will be worth 5 or 10 or 15 years from now, even with, first off, the escalation of prices that we've seen in the Chattanooga area, the last 3 real estate booms missed Chattanooga.
Yeah. We're moderated. Right, we're moderated.
Yeah, we're back to where the whole rest of the world's country's been for a long time.
Agreed.
I think for the most part, Todd.
I agree. Yep, absolutely. We're not on the coast. We're not a capital city. We don't have those highs, lows, fluctuations. We don't have those deep ebbs and flows. It's Chattanooga, East Tennessee, I would say, is just a consistent day in, day out. No dramatic changes one way or the other inside of our pricing structures, and of course we all hear these anecdotal
now
stories.
You're talking about what it was. I'm not. Is it that right now?
I think so. I think it's consistent. It's just I think we're right where we want to be. This is a great place to own real estate. It's a great place to sell real estate. We're right where we want to be. We don't want the highs and the bipolarness of Nashville or the suburbs of Atlanta, we want to be right where we are. It's a steady place to own and buy and sell real estate.
267-1023. Yep. Let's talk money. We'll be right back.
Let's talk money. Talk Radio 102.3.
Yeah, back for Let's Talk Money. 267-1023. With us this afternoon, Brittany Ennen and Todd Henon. Todd, how do they reach you? Get a hold of you guys.
423-413-4507. ToddHenon.com. Brittany, you can reach her at the 4507 number.
4507, and we can post our emails too. I think ToddHenon.com is a great place to go and get more data and information.
All right, Todd, a few weeks ago, I guess a couple of months now, I had a good friend and a client of mine pass away. His wife owns a home in the Ringgold area, White Oak Mountain area. They lived there for 20 years plus.
Right.
She had absolutely zero idea what the value of her home was.
Yep.
Because, number one, if I've not done a major construction project,
Right.
and I've not sold a piece of property in 20 or 25 years. I see what I see on TV. I hear what I hear about real estate markets, but how do I know whether my home's worth $300,000, $425,000, and I'm left? Someone can say to me, "Well, bring in a real estate agent." Well, I can bring in a real estate agent, but have I brought a real estate agent in that I trust? Is he saying to me, "Oh yeah, this is a $300,000 house," because he can sell it easy for $300,000? How do I assess the value of the home in the present market?
Yeah. So I had this conversation last night. Bella said, "Todd, what do I do?" I said, "Get 2 appraisals." So I would rather walk into a house. Look, and we don't need a biased opinion of value. We don't need somebody that may or may not even be in the real estate industry 24 months from now. We don't need them declaring, "Here's the value." Get 2 appraisals to the property. When I walk into a home and I meet with you and your husband, you say, "Hey, we want to sell." We just spent $1,200. Here's 2 appraisals. We just had this. We had 2. There's our starting place. But that's an informed, sophisticated piece of the conversation that then we can build on. The problem starts with when the sentence begins with "I think." Really? Can we get some numbers to start this conversation instead of what some realtor thinks? And I get that. That's what I do. But I'm telling you, the most prepared individuals are the ones that will lay that groundwork with an appraiser.
Well, the difference is, more often than not, you have been in the business long enough, Todd, that you can walk in there and you kind of know what the number is. You probably have a pretty reasonably good idea. But I've hired you, but I don't know you real well. I don't know where that level of bias is. The advantage of having that third-party, independent number, to me, creates a level of comfort on the front end, and particularly when you're proposing it. When you're saying, "We need to do this."
Yes.
And there's a realization that I'm going to dollar appraisal. I'm going to at least get 1. Maybe I get 2 out there. Right. But then we kind of know.
That's right. That's the zip code that we start from.
Well, relative to the appraisals, if you're getting 2, how different do the numbers tend to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. We'll see them close. We don't tend to see huge chasms between those 2 numbers. They're going to be close. But I say 2 because it's just, again, it's kind of the collective
thinking.
Yeah.
Basements can be different, perceived differently, right? I mean, there's all sorts of parts of your home that can be perceived.
I was going to ask it, and I'm no intention to sell my house, but I do know when I bought it and now it would be incredibly difficult to find comps on it. The appraisers struggled in appraising it, because no homes had sold on that particular road. The areas surrounding it were not at all comparable. There was a mother-in-law suite that further complicated things. What do you do in those situations where you don't really have, where the appraiser nor you guys are really going to have great numbers?
Yep. So when I walk into that environment, if we have 1 appraisal, we look at that. Can I align with that? So that's going to be one of the exercises. If there's 2 appraisals, can I align with both of those? What I'm looking for is some continuity in those numbers. And again, that just kind of gets us in the zip code of pricing. It just gets us to a general range of what that property may be worth. I mean, it's easy if we roll into a subdivision and every house is within 200 feet of the same size and there's no basements and they're all built 8 years ago, right? We can do that.
Yeah.
But
you can pull those comps and you're going to be close.
That's right. But when it's Jamie's house, we need a boardroom approach to what's this, because there's value, but it doesn't serve you well if we underprice it. You've just left money on the table. Well, Brittany and I don't want to do that. And it doesn't serve the process well if we run it out in front of where the market is. Then when you're sitting there and you're like, gee whiz, guys, nobody's looking at the house. How are we going to sell this? Nobody's even here. Well, they're not here because we've overpriced it.
Well, and I think it depends on the situation of the seller, right? Do they need to sell? right away? Do they want to see how much they can get?
Yeah.
Right? It's an emotional process. What is your current situation? And you have to dive into all of that once you have to figure out what that number is.
Well, and you've got to look at your available marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm selling a $3 million home in the Chattanooga area, there are very few potential buyers.
3%. Yeah,
At the
less
top 3%
than
is about
3%
Versus,
or over a
versus
million
versus
here.
the $300,000 home.
Correct.
There may be a vast level there. So sometimes, I mean, the sheer size of the home, the location, the situation may make something either more valuable or less valuable than it would be just on paper.
Correct. And then that circles us all the way back to the days on the market, because just in what you threw out right there's going to be different days on the markets. And yep.
How many people threw their house on the market to see what would happen? Particularly
I would love to hear that number.
the peak. I mean, I don't know how we'd figure that out, but I'm and I'm sure a good percentage of them ended up selling them.
You know, when we pulled out of the office as good citizens, you know, in March of 2020, I think we had, give or take, 50 listings. Mm-hmm. And I told one of the gals, I said, write that on the office, write how many listings we have, write that on the whiteboard. When we get back, we will have less than that, I declared. No, I thought we would have more. I thought we would double the number. I thought we'd go from 50 to 100. I thought we were headed into this dark, abysmal, mess.
We did too.
And
When
this
we
is
got back,
2020,
when we got back, I think we were down to 17. We were selling things that it was like, why would anyone want to buy that? Right? But people from out of state, they were like, oh, here's this low-hanging fruit in Tennessee. And so it was just properties selling that heretofore struggled.
Well, what's fascinating is we got low inventory, but we got the highest sales volume we've ever. I mean, we're selling. You would look at it and say, well, gosh, there's only X amount of homes for sale. We're not going to sell that many this year. But the numbers are such that we're selling the most with the least amount of inventory, i.e. the 14 days that it's taken to move a house.
Correct. And I think I'll be off on the exact number, but I want to say year over year, it's down 3%.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah.
2.5.
When you look at year to date versus year to date a year ago, does that make sense?
Which was the best
Yeah.
that the market has ever seen.
Right. 21 was, and then 22 is tracking only 3% behind that. But again, take it back. There's not enough real estate to go around. We don't have enough homes.
267-1023. Let's talk money. We'll be right back.
Let's talk money. Talk Radio 102.3.
You're back to Let's Talk Money, 267-1023. The number, we've only got a couple of minutes left. Very quickly, Todd, I'm selling my home. I'm a seller, and I'm going to be a buyer.
Right.
I'm a seller. I don't have enough money. If I sell first, I got to go live somewhere. Or if I got a lot of money, I can buy first, then I can sell, and it's not an issue. Or if I got enough money that I think I might make it, I could buy, and then I own two homes, and then I don't sell. I'm assuming this happens a lot.
It happens a lot, and those are the conversations that make my palms sweat, because we need to know where someone's going. What's the plan? And the plan has to be flexible. So is it really a plan? And Brittany would attest, it's like the last thing we want is somebody to put a for sale sign in the yard and not know where we're going.
Well, because if you put your house on the market,
It might sell.
it's probably going to sell
Real quick.
and you're going to have to figure out where the hell you're going to be in 6 weeks, not 6 months. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we need a plan, but then we're going to hold that plan loosely. And I think the overall driving principle there is we want our clients to have been good stewards financially in the property. We don't want them stepping off the end of a gangplank into some black hole that we have no control over.
Well, because it could lead to really bad decision making.
It's already a stressful process.
Yeah.
Right. We don't need to.
It's
create more
nutty,
stress.
and so we don't want to add to that on any level.
And so, I mean, you've really got to do an assessment. You got to say, look, my financial situation says I've got to sell before I can buy. All right. If I know I'm going to put that house on the market, then I got to go out and look for a place to rent.
Correct.
And I've got to be proactive about that, because if I have a home for sale under $600,000 or $700,000, I pretty well have to make the assumption that that house is going to sell within probably 30 days, 45 days for sure.
Yes.
Agreed.
It-
And I think the conversation too is if you don't sell your home and you have a contingency to sell to try to buy a home, you're competing with those that might not.
Yeah,
Right?
in this market
any
right now,
contingency, it's a big challenge. to have that.
contingency is one of those things that's happened in the past, and it may happen again sometime in the future, but Todd, not in this market. The chance of you buying a home and saying, I'll buy your home contingent,
Correct.
that person may have 4 or 5 other bids.
That's right. And we are seeing some, but that's a tall order. That's a really, really tough.
Yeah.
Well,
And we
that's
can
what
have
happens in a buyer's market,
Correct.
not in a seller's
right.
market.
And you can have the conversation if you're under contract, right? And you've already gone through inspections and you're going to close in a week, then we can explain that to the seller's agent, possibly.
Well, and there may be
there's
people.
different
Yeah.
Look, we also
situations.
know
Yeah.
people that have sold a home, and the people that bought the home let them rent the home for a month, 2 months, 3
Yes.
months. I mean, there's potential things, but all of that is based on a plan and discussions beforehand.
Yes.
Correct.
Because nobody in any industry likes to be damn surprised.
No.
I
No.
mean, it's just not what you want in that world.
I feel like the pods, the store, we use those when we
Yes,
move, where
yeah.
they come, they take your stuff. They have to be killing it right now because it just seems like kind of the perfect solution. Because I know tons of people that have sold and they knew they were going to have to do it, but did have to rent, stay with family.
Yep.
At least maybe if it
You
was
have
just
to
a
move
couple
twice.
weeks, a couple months,
Yeah,
you're
so
kind of in it.
The business model is building the pod you can live in after you sell your house before you buy, right? That's what we're missing.
That's exactly
Called
right.
RVs.
Yeah.
Once again, Todd, how they reach you?
ToddHenon.com, 423-413-4507.
And you, Britt.
I'm at toddhenon.com as well. My email is Brittany at toddhenon.com.
Guys, thank you for coming in.
It's our
we
pleasure.
appreciate it.
Enjoyed
very
it.
much.
Appreciate you all.
All right,
Thank you.
Dave Ramsey, the Ramsey Show coming up right now from 1 to 3, 3 to 7 Sports Talk. Have a great Tuesday out there. We'll talk to you tomorrow.